Hello everyone, my name is Wais Asmal. Welcome to another episode of Two Ways to Skin a Cat, a show where we talk career experiences, entrepreneurship, and investments. The main aim is to show that there's more than one way to be successful other than just climbing the corporate ladder. Now we are live on LinkedIn and YouTube, and the show will be available on podcast by tomorrow. For those listening on the podcast, please leave a rating. Now, if you're joining us live, drop a one in the comments so we know we're not talking to ourselves, and drop a two in the comments if you're watching the recording. My guest for this week is Lalie Moraba, a Circadian health coach who was a legal professional for over 10 years. Lalie, thanks so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me, Uwais, and greetings to the audience.
Let's jump straight in. Tell us your story. Where do you come from? And even outside of work, who is Lalie Moraba? Give us that backstory.
Okay, so I am a mom to two wonderful children and a wife to a funny guy called Dumi. We live in Joburg, and we are a family that does a whole lot of things, including homeschooling our children. And that was always a dream of mine that I wished I had been homeschooled. So when I had mine, I decided I was going to do that. And so it's been a journey like that. So that is in my personal capacity. I used to be a crazy marathon runner, but I stopped doing that 2 years ago now because I just got tired. And these days I spend more time because I'm getting older, also more time lifting weights, which is a lot of fun. I love taking walks with my family. We like to go for walks and hikes, and I love cooking and just making wonderful things in the kitchen. I love bread, and it turns out LinkedIn loves my bread also. I had a post last week on bread, and everybody wants bread from me. So, yeah.
And career wise?
Anyway, so I studied way back then BSc Law. I had done that because I wanted to do intellectual property. And I loved law, I loved science, and I thought, hey, let me put these things together. And Rhodes University at the time offered this combination. It was just me and another friend, and we were the only two who were doing a BSc Law at the time. And loved studying law, fantastic, loved the science also. But by the end of my final year, I think I had reached the point where I thought, I actually don't think I want to practice law. This just doesn't seem like it's me. But it was the mainstream thing to do. And I just followed that path and went on and did articles all along, just knowing that this isn't me. But I think not having the courage to really voice it, and then, so I just kind of meandered through that legal path. And then during my articles, took time out to go. But the firm that I worked for at the time would send out candidate attorneys to the Hillbrow Magistrates Court. And I did some criminal litigation there. And I really enjoyed that. And but I knew that also still wasn't what I really wanted to do with myself. I worked at the Constitutional Court. It was amazing. Just an amazing time in my life. And then went back into corporate and felt more miserable than I'd ever been before. And it wasn't so much that law itself was a terrible thing. I loved the subject of law, but I think I really just wanted to do something else that was different and meandered along that. And actually, while I was still in corporate, I studied a health coaching course because I had also been very much interested in health all my life since I was a little child, because I had my own health challenges and I just wanted to know how the body functions and all of that. So I studied a health coaching course also. But and that was when I started it. I was thinking I'm going to do health coaching. I'm going to quit this law thing and I'm going to go and do that. But I didn't have the guts to at the time, so I started and I finished that, and then went from one job to another in law still all along. And I think I don't remember the sequence of the years now. It's just been so many years that have gone. But at some point, I really just jacked myself up and said, I'm going to have the guts to do this and just to quit, at least, just to quit the law. And I did that. The practice of it went into lecturing. And the funny thing about this is when I was in high school, I had wanted to be a teacher. And I said to my teachers that I really want to be a teacher. And they were like, no, 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 you're not doing that. You're too intelligent for that. And I didn't think much of it then. But later on as an adult, I thought, oh my gosh, they didn't realize that me wanting to be a teacher was a compliment to them. It had nothing to do with degrees of intelligence, right? So when I was lecturing, it felt like this is what I wanted to do. This is what it actually was like in my high school days had wanted to do. And I really found that this is the first time that I enjoyed law in such a way that it fed my soul and I could pour into other people's lives. But over the years, also shortly before COVID, I was doing contract work in the lecturing space. It was never a full-time role. So over time, I, for other personal reasons, got out of that and then continued, actually then just stopped employment and just was homeschooling my children. And then in 2020, I did another health coaching course. And then I thought, okay, I think I'm going to do this thing now. I think I'm going to call this my business. But it wasn't to be. In 2021, all of a sudden, I really want to do this. I'm too scared to do this. And I decided to study corporate governance. I thought that was still in the legal way of things, which I did. And I did the exams and I passed that. But I think by the end of it, I was so worn out. And I remembered my time in corporate. And I remembered how miserable I had been then. And I thought, is this really where I want to go back? And I thought, this is not me. Let me just gain some courage. I was having conversations with friends, with family. Everybody, and it was almost like I was looking for somebody to give me permission, right? To do what I wanted
Validation.
to do. Yeah. And then in 2022, I then thought, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to become a health coach and spoke to a friend of mine who's a he took me through a process of just learning what business was about. So I did that with him for 2022, 2023, and then started my work officially as a health coach last year, or maybe part of 23 into last year. And I feel like in a way things have come full circle because health coaching very much to me feels like teaching. Come together, these puzzle pieces. And of course, I'm still building the puzzle, but so much has come together more than I ever thought. And even though I've been through the ups and downs and the fears and everything, some of them are still part of me. I just feel like I'm in a better place now than I've been in a long time, at least professionally. So that's my
Okay.
long story.
No,
Yeah.
that gives a good backstory to start, because
Mhm.
I mean, when somebody thinks, when nobody thinks going, okay, I'm gonna go from a lawyer and I'm gonna end up being a wellness coach. That's definitely
Yeah.
not the career path that they told you when you
No.
start your first year of varsity. Um,
Yes.
Obviously, based on your explanation, it wasn't your plan necessarily,
Mm.
um, but you still decided to pivot.
Mhm.
Was it more of an internal thing, or were you winging it, for lack of a better word?
Winging it, to be quite honest. I mean, I had internal convictions, right, about myself as a person, and as I mentioned just now, I had health issues, and a big one for me was always sleep and anxiety along those lines, and I was always suffering from poor sleep and trying to figure out how to help myself. And of course, being in corporate, sleep was just one of those things that just was sacrificed on the altar of everything that I was doing. And again, when I look back, I realized that that's one of the reasons why I was so unhappy in it because I felt like I was living with this fog, always with this veil over me. And I didn't identify it as that at the time. As much as I knew that I was an intelligent, hardworking, diligent person, I suffered internally and things are spoken about more openly now if we think about mental health, right? Things are spoken about a lot more. But I know that when I was in corporate, it wasn't even a thing. So how much less just your sleep and you being able to come to work as a rested, functional human being who can get along with your colleagues. So I think all of that, it's all in retrospect, honestly. It's all in retrospect. I look back and I realize that, yeah, it wasn't really part of my grand plan. I had in professional insecurities. I was a black woman who was supposed to be successful in these spaces where there weren't people like me, not many people like me. And so I was supposed to be there and to push through and to make it work and, to get my seat at the table, right? And so the one of the reasons why I didn't have the confidence to actually pull out and do what I wanted to do really was because I felt like I had to represent and I had to be there. And it took me a long time for me to stop saying to people, "Oh, I'm a former attorney now turned health coach." Now I'm at a point where I can talk about my life as a lawyer before, but it doesn't have to be the intro point. I can talk about my present life now
Mm,
without necessarily referring to what I
mm.
used to do if the context doesn't really call for that. So I have been winging it and I continue to, but with a little bit more structure.
I like
Yeah.
that. And I mean, obviously you've given us a little bit of more explanation as I understand it better. But when I look at your LinkedIn profile, it was like legal professional, lecturing and marketing, and then health
Mhm.
coach. So it
Mhm.
seems almost like, um, do you see that lecturing and marketing as like an integral part of your career, or was it mainly your means to switch from the one to the other? What do you think?
You know, I think there hasn't been any waste, right from even, candidate attorney, public defender, working as a law clerk at the court, all of it has been so meaningful for me. I cannot look back at any of it and think, just wasted 10 years of my life. No way. And bringing it all together, I think it's formed me as a person. And also law, I mean, maybe every person would say this about their career, you're a CA, you might say that about yours, but I feel like law was just so unique in teaching me how to think and how to be analytical. And all of that would apply whether I was a teacher, a lecturer, or even now in the work that I'm doing. Because and also it taught me a lot about solving cases. So now working as a health coach, a sleep coach, I'm trying to help people solve something, solve a problem, protect their health. And so there's nothing which was disjointed, I think. And it's all just come beautifully together.
The case just happens to be a
Yeah.
person right now. But it's interesting what you say about like because even like I've had a few short stints at some companies where I've not enjoyed myself, but even
Mhm.
those short stints, I've learned something. I've maybe created some network. So it's true what you say. Then nothing is ever a loss.
Yeah.
I want to move over to your title, a circadian health coach. So
Yeah.
I sort of know what a health coach is, but I definitely don't know what a circadian health coach is because you don't hear that often. So can you tell us a little
Yes.
bit about that?
Okay. So the way I always try to explain it to people is that I think everybody knows what circadian rhythm is. And the circadian rhythm is the 24-hour cycle of the day, nighttime, daytime. And the circadian rhythm runs all living beings, animals, plants, and ourselves. So circadian biology comes from circadian rhythm in that we as humans, humans, animals, and plants, we are actually essentially light beings. We're electrical beings, light beings. We run on light. So the light of the sun, light of the moon, all of that runs us. So me being a circadian health coach means that I help people to be properly connected with the sunlight mostly so that their bodies can function. And I stumbled on this because I was trying to figure out my sleep problems. I was, as I said, sleeping very poorly, and I was reading a lot, listening to podcasts, articles, all of this, just reading a lot and trying to figure out how to solve my issues because I was also taking supplements. I knew better than to become dependent on sleep drugs. But I think looking back, the supplements were not that much better because they would work and then they would stop working. And then I stumbled upon light as a means to fix my sleep. And so just reading up on that and then deciding that actually I think I want to study this. So I did that in 2023 actually, where that they with the Quantum Biology Institute in the US, they offered this. And so that's what I studied. And I have found that having a connection with natural light has not only solved my sleep, I was going into it trying to solve my sleep problems, but it's helped me with my mental health, with other physiological issues. Like, I mean, as I said, because we're light beings, it really affects every single function in our body. And so when a person comes, for example, somebody says, "Oh, I'm dealing with sleep issues or even weight issues. I'm struggling to lose weight." Uh, One coach might say, "Well, eat this much and work out this much at the gym." And that's okay. That may work. I say to them, that is more the calories in, calories out, move more, eat less is actually really more step 2 or 3. You need to lay the foundations of your health in connecting with the light source, because you find that these things that we do on top, like me taking a lot of supplements, they're really step 2 or 3 in the ladder. But you really need to spend more time laying the foundations, and light is one of those foundations. So ensuring that you are connecting with sunlight every single day, starting off with sunrise, helps you to be able to fix your sleep. And then turns out that fixing your sleep fixes your weight issues, and it turns out it fixes your mental health issues and so much else. So that's summarizing in a long way what circadian health is.
It's the golden thread almost.
Yes.
But for the audience, we'll be responding to questions towards the end. So please add your questions to the comment section so that we don't miss them. So Lali, you spent time in corporate South Africa. I am assuming you've got lots of clients who are still in corporate South Africa. What are professionals doing wrong? What mistakes do you see them making over and over and over again?
I would say one of the things that I've been talking about on LinkedIn is just how disconnected we are from ourselves as people, I think. So I, and of course, I can only really speak from my perspective and the way that I see it. I think, as I alluded to earlier, especially as a Black woman, we come into spaces and we're supposed to come in there like we are disembodied creatures of some kind. I'm coming in just as this brain. I started at Rhodes, I started here and there, and I collected all of these things, and that's all I'm supposed to bring. And I find that that can only take you so far and no more. There's a lot of things that people can do in getting continuous training, et cetera, to improve themselves as professionals. But when you are disconnected from who you are as a person, it really just, what's the word? What do like it makes your career so much less impactful, I think. And also thinking that your life isn't just about your career, right? There's so much more to you than just that. So which is one of the reasons that I do what I do, is that I'm trying to help women in particular to say, I am a woman. Yes, I have all of these accolades, but I'm still the person that I am, and I need to care for myself emotionally, physiologically, etc., and present myself as the person that I am. Of course, professionally. You're not just going to come there and just be rude or whatever it is, but you need to not forget who you are, because I think staying grounded in that will help you go further in your career. So I see that a lot, especially with my peers and such.
Okay. Now, your LinkedIn profile says sunlight helped my poor sleep. So, other than making my wife very happy that you proved that right, um, talk to us a little bit more about that.
So when I say that, it was taking a lot of things to try and help me. But the thing that did the trick for me with regard to the sleep was waking up in the morning. So now being autumn, it would mean that sunrise in my area is at around 6:20 in the morning. So I'm up before that anyway, because that's just how it is. But sunrise becomes the first light of day that I see. I go outside at 6:20 and I connect my eyes to the light of the sun. Of course, you don't, at that time of the morning, you're not going to see the big ball. It's time for it to get the light. The light is there, and the light is doing the work that it needs to do. So when I started doing that, I think now it is 2025. Yeah, so that's now about 5 years ago when I started doing that. And within a short space of time, I don't remember how long it was, but I remember thinking, looking back and thinking, hey, I had a good night of sleep for maybe, I don't know, maybe 2 weeks or something like that. And that's been the case ever since for me. And by that, I don't mean that my sleep has been perfect, not at all. But I do mean that whereas before, in a 7-day week, maybe I was getting 3 nights, if I was lucky, of maybe 6.5 hours of sleep. Now, it can be 5 nights of at least 7 hours. And I get in bed, I hit the pillow, I'm out within a few minutes, and then it's 5 a.m. And that morning light is what really helped me so much. And then also making sure that even during the day, I get out. And then around now, when the sun is setting, open the window, go outside, and just connect with the sunset again for my body to know the time of day, for my body to know that now it is sunset and we're heading towards bedtime. And one of the supplements that I was taking was melatonin, right? It's a very popular one. I hear a lot of people talking about that. You asked me about the people that I interact with. A lot of people are taking that. And we think that because it's a natural thing, it's a natural hormone, that it's okay. But the thing is, when you're taking this exogenous substance and putting it in your body, you may likely be stopping your own body from making melatonin. And melatonin is our sleep hormone, and more accurately, actually, it is the hormone of the dark. It is made in our bodies when we're in the dark. So if at 9 p.m., 10 p.m., I'm sitting in my house with lights on like they are now, it stops my body from making the right melatonin. And that's what I was doing before all my life. I didn't know that this is what I was doing. Because we live modern lives, I was a student, I was studying, and lights are on until 10, 11 a.m. at night, and then I was working and deadlines, and all of that was affecting me and not allowing me to be able to sleep. So sorting that out is why I'm able now to get consistent sleep.
Are there any other low hanging fruits that people can change? Obviously, with the next step being them coming to see you, of course.
Well, I think really what I tell everybody is the number one thing to do is to get up in the morning and open a window or go outside and get that morning light. And winter is a great time for that because it means you're not going out, especially if you live in Joburg, you're not going out at 5 a.m., right? In the morning. So now the sun is going to be rising later and later. So if you can do that at the top end of your day, you'd be solving a lot of problems. Then in the middle of your day, try also and just go out a few times to to get that light, just to get sunlight and even on your skin. And then at the end of the day, this is now the part where it becomes a bit more difficult, especially for professionals and for families, modern living. We're making supper, we're socializing, we're watching TV, etc., etc. This is when I then say, if you have deadlines and you have work to do in the later part of the day, try and dim the lights in your house, number one. Secondly, there is software that you can buy that you can install on your device, on your phone, on your iPad, on your computer, which changes the color of the screen so that while you are still working on your computer, it still at least helps your body to start upregulating your melatonin. And then, thirdly, you can buy what are called blue blocking glasses. And I work with professionals who buy very expensive Ray-Bans, very expensive sunglasses. They can afford the blue blocking glasses and go and buy those. They come with an orange or a red tint. If you buy those, and then if you have to now stay up late on your computer, you can be wearing those. And again, they're gonna because of the change of the color, they're gonna help your body to make the melatonin so that you can be able to go to sleep. And I think those are three things that any professionals can try and do. And it is very accessible. It's very accessible without now leaving your job and going to live in the village somewhere. So
Yeah, no, makes sense. I want to move over to questions from the audience because I see they're coming in. Got a
okay.
question from Moira who says, do you think if you had the knowledge you now have as a sleep and health coach, your time in law would have been more enjoyable? Or to thrive in certain professions, your sleep and health, or would your sleep and health have to take a knock? Which I understand what you mean.
Yeah, no, I get that. Yeah, I mean, this is something that I think about a lot, Moira. And honestly, I think yes. So to your first question, yes, my time would have been better because I would have known that I needed to be more rigid about getting decent sleep and not feeling like I'm living behind a fog. Like I say, I knew I was hardworking and diligent, but I felt like I could never really reach my potential. But having said that, the truth is the professional space thrives on sleeplessness. And that is something that only we humans can change, which is also part of the work that I'm now also starting to do is to approach it from that corporate angle of saying that if we're not taking care of our sleep, just like if we're not taking care of our mental health, then we are compromising the people who actually do the work. And whatever the level might be, I think that seriously needs to change, that we need to allow people to be able to disengage from work and get 6.5 hours of sleep on a regular basis.
Hopefully, if they don't have kids, because I'm struggling with that. Anyways,
Me
uh,
too.
any last few words from you, or anything we didn't discuss that you'd like the audience to know?
Yes, as I just said now, that I am also trying to pivot my work towards the corporate wellness space. So if there's anybody listening who's struggling with sleep, but is hiding it like I was, and maybe needs their boss to know that, boss, please stop calling me at 11 p.m. Stop sending me WhatsApps. I would really like to get into those spaces where I'm able to do presentations. I've done a few already, but be able to do presentations to show that sleep is good for business. Sleep is a fantastic growth strategy. It is very much ignored, but if we can do more awareness, I think a lot more people would be able to sustain their careers, and then the bottom line can improve for everyone. So I think that would kind of sum it up.
So, better sleep means better health, means less sick days, means more
Abs-
productivity.
Exactly, especially for
Um,
women, especially for the women.
I think that's a great way to end. The show has been live on YouTube and should be available on podcast by tomorrow. If you're watching on YouTube or listening on the podcast and you feel that it's added value, don't forget to like, subscribe, and click on that notification bell to get automatically notified when the next episode comes out. Lali, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us.